really cool thing about this is it's so collaborative, and in the way that you get that great energy from performances, you get the same thing, I think, when it's going really well filming. And like the vibe between you and the piano player and the drummer and the energy that's in the room and the team as well, the videographers, I think it really does come together in a kind of positive way.
I am such a fan of what Geoff Chalmers and the team at Discover Double Bass are up to, and it's so exciting to learn about new projects that they've got going on, new courses coming out. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we are having on the podcast today 2 past guests and people that I consider to be dear friends. Geoff Chalmers, the founder of Discover Double Bass, and Danny Ziemann, another great friend and the person behind 2 new courses for Discover Double Bass. We're going to dig into all the details about these courses in this very fun conversation with Geoff and Danny. And before we get going, I'd like to give a shout out to D'Addario Strings, Upton Bass, and A440 for making this show possible. Thank you so much, all of you, and you'll learn more about all 3 of those great companies later. But let's dig into this conversation with Geoff Chalmers and Danny Ziemann. I am on the line with Geoff Chalmers of Discover Double Bass and Danny Ziemann. I have had both of them on the podcast, and Danny is coming out with a new course through Discover Double Bass. So welcome, Geoff. Welcome, Danny. Great to have you guys back on the show.
Hey, thanks
for having us, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pumped about this course. I've been following along with what Discover Double Bass has done ever since it appeared on the horizon. And Geoff has so many wonderful courses, and he's brought Lauren Pierce on board, and she's done so many great courses. And now we've got this new addition to the team, Danny. So just tell me about the genesis of this course and what's in it. And I just want to know all the details.
Well, shall I jump in and say how we met first, Danny, and then you can maybe talk about the actual course a bit? Because me and Danny have sort of been online bass buddies, like, a lot of us all are for a while. And we met up at the ISB last year, and I went to Danny's presentation, which was really cool. And yeah, I've been looking to get more people involved, more courses, build out Discover Double Bass, and cover more material than I can do on my own. And Danny's just got such exciting ideas, and he's so passionate about walking bass, specifically about walking bass, but about jazz bass in general, about life in general. So he's he's got some good vibes, and I really loved his talk. And I thought we've got to try and collaborate, because Danny is doing a very special course this year, where he's part of, he'll tell you about this course that he's doing in a moment, but he's over in Europe for a year. So I thought, okay, we've got to try and make this happen, because I'm based in the UK. Danny's over in Switzerland. So he came over at the beginning of this year, and we filmed the first of a couple of courses, actually. So we're doing 2 courses, and we're not sure which one's going to come first, because while we're making the first one, which, we suddenly realized actually we're going to have to make another one as well, because because one part of it we thought would be really popular, so we're going to have to do more. But we've brought in a live band, we've got a much bigger video team, we've got a much bigger studio, and we just worked really hard, a long time, planning out all of the material that Danny had got, and then sort of trying to translate it into the format that works really well for video. Because Danny's a published author, he's written a couple of books already, and we're trying to get his ideas, and get him presenting them and bringing them in front of the Discover Double Bass audience. Being a really big walking bass fan, it's just been a blast for me, because I've just got to hang out and enjoy like the creation of this course, and being involved in the production side of it rather than the presenting side of it. And it's just been a real joy to be able to share Danny's ideas. And the only thing I've got to say is that we actually have 2 courses. One of them's a bit longer, which covers Danny's concepts of walking bass, which are quite different from anything that I've ever seen covered before. And then there's a shorter course, which is about playing in a trio. And it's because the band had such a great time in the studio that they're all saying, hang on, we've got to do like a course on how we're communicating and how, common endings and how the improvisational kind of thing works. So there's these 2 courses, a shorter one on kind of improvising literally with a live band, and what it's like working in a rhythm section, and then a longer one on walking bass kind of creation. So that's where we are. And I don't know, maybe Danny could give us a bit of flesh out these ideas.
Yeah. I mean, so just getting back to, just the first I mean, even just like the first time that we met and talked about bass lines, I just remember, you know, at the ISB just sitting down and talking and just being so, you know, again, like so inspired just by, you know, Geoff's dedication to basically the bass community and education at large. Like a lot of the stuff that I talked about on my topic was just, you know, where's the direction of pedagogy and like what tools are most people utilizing right now. And everything was sort of pointing to video production. And having just done, you know, the filming for this course, like I understand how difficult it really is to communicate information in that one way road where you are explaining something and you can easily make assumptions about what the other person on the other end knows. And it was just, you know, just having that experience and being able to work with someone who's, you know, like such, you know, just so dedicated to that field of teaching or that sort of tool and resource was just, you know, again, so inspiring. So a lot of the ideas that we worked with on this course, you know, advanced walking bass lines and generating new vocabulary, just different ways of sort of navigating through the changes, was stuff that I've been sitting on for the last few years and working out through this program and on different gigs. And, you know, having Geoff in the room was acting as the producer was just amazing. Cause be like, man, can you explain this differently? Or like, what do you mean about this? And he was really poking and prodding a lot of ideas and really, you know, helping me to massage it into something that I'm just so, you know, so excited to share with everybody now. Just so proud of it.
You've written The Lowdown, volumes 1 and 2, right?
Yes,
which we talked about that on our past podcast a year ago or so. And then I saw you present too in Prague on The Lowdown, and then you've taught live, and now you've done a course, and they're all real different modalities. To me, how does teaching live or doing a presentation differ from putting together a course like this? How do those different experiences feel to you? Just the behind the scenes process.
Yeah. So the preparation was generally the same because that was, I mean, I have sort of one system for going through and kind of outlining what I'd like to do. So because I was not really familiar in the, you know, just the world of filming, like, okay, I'll just do what I can to prepare as best as I can. And then, you know, that way I can account for the unknown, like what it's like to step in front of a camera. So in terms of the similarities, you know, just being passionate about what you're talking about and being passionate about the presentation and really caring about the material is a common thread, whether you're working with, you know, students one-on-one or giving a lecture or just presenting on a video. So that was nice for me to look back at some of the clips and be like, okay, I really, you know, I do exude the same sort of passion that I would when I'm working with someone in person. But again,
it's really hard, that, Danny. You know, that's the thing is like to give you a sort of shout out about that. I mean, we were in there working really hard with a big team of people, all the pressure's on you. There's me, another bass player, who's literally going through all of your ideas and criticizing them and pulling them apart right in front of you. And I would have found it hard. And I've done a lot of video before, but you just sort of went in there and did it. And it's, I've been working through some of the edits with the team today. And the stuff is just so strong. It is so all the way through. You just kept getting better. And I think there's a real, you know, saying about the difference between the different modalities and stuff. The really cool thing about this is it's so collaborative. And in the way that you get that great energy from performances, you get the same thing, I think, when it's going really well filming. And like the vibe between you and the piano player and the drummer and the energy that's in the room and the team as well, you know, the videographers. I think it really does come together in a kind of positive way. And I think you're able to kind of leverage this momentum of this energy of other people, and it creates something really special when it works. And it's hard to do that over a long form video course. So both you and, of course, Lauren Pierce, who, you know, is the other person who is a course creator at Discover Double Bass, and she's got such a great way of communicating. I think it's just effortless for her as well. She just seems to knock those videos out, and they're just always getting better. So, you know, hats off to you for that.
Thanks, man. I mean, it was again just great having that perspective in the room, because the one thing that is different with, you know, working with students is like, if I say something and the student doesn't get it, or, you know, it's like I have the ability to immediately just change what I'm saying to account for their individual learning style. But when you're creating a video, it's like you have to account for like the lowest common denominator and the highest. You have to be able to present something that captures every type of learner, or at least as many as you could, try and account for. People that have a high level of aptitude, or people that, may identify as intermediates and are like just kind of, maybe more beginners, whatever. It's like you have to find a way to make sure that the information is communicated to them in a way that motivates them and makes them feel like they want to explore these ideas and makes them feel empowered without actually getting that feedback. I just have to trust in the information, and that was a huge difference that I wasn't really prepared, not prepared for. I just didn't know how to account for it. And again, just having Geoff's perspective in the room was so unbelievably helpful to sort of massage those ideas.
Jason, what about you? Because you've obviously turning the tables on you. You've done so much video, and you've done so much audio, and you've done, and all this sharing of information. Like, how's it work for you? And the written material, the blog. What do you prefer doing, and what do you think works best in terms of communicating ideas?
Well, there's nothing to me like in-person communication. I love that. I love whether it's events or lessons or just hanging out with people. That's my favorite modality for sure.
Humans.
Right, exactly. Human to human, which is a funny thing maybe to hear from someone who spends so much time in front of a laptop by themselves. But I do enjoy that time too. That solitary time. I find that's my synthesis time. That's my reflection time. So for me, I like both. I like the solitary time, sitting there with my notepad in front of me, sketching out ideas, and then I love getting in the weeds and working with people and letting things get messy and confusing and solving things together. So yeah, these are things that all three of us probably think about a lot.
Hey, this is Danny Ziemann. Right now, I'm playing the D'Addario Helicore Pizzicatos, and I've been using them for about 7 years now, and I have to say they are my favorite string for jazz. The clarity in sound and tone, intonation, everything is just exactly what I'm looking for. They're not too bright. There's a really wonderful musical sustain that you can manipulate, for when you're playing ballads or more up-tempo tunes. I mean, just the range of color and control that you get out of them is just exactly what I need. It suits my needs perfectly, and I definitely encourage anyone who's looking for a new string to check out or wants something that is great for jazz and gives you more of that sustained sound. Definitely consider the Helicore Pizzicatos.
I've got a question for both of you since I got you on the line. If we zoom out just for a second, because I've thought a lot about online learning in general, and it's amazing to see what's happening across all disciplines with online learning. Now, a fear that someone who teaches out there, or a concern maybe, is, does this replace the private lesson experience? What you're doing? And I have thoughts on that, but I would love both of your perspectives. Could you share, are we putting all our music teachers out of business by doing what we're doing here?
Geoff, can I get that? Because I get that question the most. Obviously, I'm the guy that people are thinking, oh no, it's that guy. It's that guy. It's just another information product. It's just like a book. It's a completely, in the basic form. I mean, it's not quite as simple as this, but in a way, it's a one-way street. You're presenting this information. And you know what? If I could have a video course that's like broken down, really carefully created. This isn't clumsily put together. We're not just filming, like Danny doesn't just come in and film for an hour and just talk about bass. This is as carefully produced as a book. So that's the first thing, is that the material is really carefully put together. And then you've actually got both, because you've got the sheet music in front of you online, you've got the backing tracks that you need, you've got further study material, you've got points of clarification, maybe a glossary, there could be links to other areas that people don't understand, and it'll never replace a teacher. It's not the same thing. We don't ever encourage that people only learn one way, in the same way that nobody out there is saying that you should just learn by reading one book. It's just part of the journey. And I think that there is so much information out there now, and there's so much great free information. There's so many awesome things like Jason's videos with Andy Anderson. I must have watched those 50 times each of them. Honestly, I can remember watching them time and time again. But, you know, there's also material that might confuse people. And we're trying to put together stuff in a really clear, it's all about clarity of idea and presenting it, but it doesn't in any way remove the role of a teacher, because the teacher still has to be there to interact with the student, to give a feedback to the student. And, you know, it's just another information product. It's better than a book, and it's better than a VHS video, and it's better than a DVD, because we can be more in depth and provide more resources, and we can provide all of the other stuff. And actually, you know what, in some ways it's different as well, because if you have a book of studies, I would rather have a paper book. You know, if I had a book of exercises or something, Neil Tarleton's Sevchek book, I'm really happy to buy that in physical copy. I still really like holding a book in my hand. But there are some things like technique or, demonstrating the way that Danny's working with these musicians. It is so priceless. And anyone that's watched the Ray Brown BBC masterclasses that are on YouTube, I'm sure they would rather watch them, or certainly get a huge amount out of them, in addition to the Ray Brown book that we all have. You know, it's just another way of presenting information. That's how I see it. But, well, obviously I get asked this a fair amount, so I'm probably, going on about it too much. What do you think, Danny?
I agree. I think really that, the book it's a tool, just in the same way that a video is a tool, in the same way that an iPad is a tool. It's not going to replace, pen and paper. It's just another outlet that we have for learning. I think all the trends point to interactive learning online and video learning as one of the, the new sort of platform that everyone's utilizing. I remember having a conversation with John Clayton over the summer, and I said, do you think that do you think that pedagogy is getting better? Do you think that, how can you explain just the increase in talent at a younger and younger age? And he said one of the signs was, or one of the indicators was just, it's like, yeah, YouTube. It's amazing. He's like, there are a lot of great resources. So that person who has no teacher in the middle of, whatever state where the closest jazz club is 500 miles away, it's like, it's a way for them to interact with something that's really high level and demonstrates, all these really great musical traits. It doesn't replace anything, but again, it's in the educational world. If you have someone that's committed to the community and providing opportunities for other people to learn, then producing something like a video, it's a really wonderful platform that we haven't had before, and I think it's just to be, we should encourage anybody to explore learning however they want. And especially now with this technology, it just makes so much sense to embrace.
To me, I totally agree. To me, it doesn't replace the lesson. It enhances the lesson because it gives you a place to start. Just like if you were attending a university class, you would be expected to read all these books and take in all these things and synthesize. And the lesson is where you go to the next level. And if you're a private teacher out there listening, and you think how many times you've described the same fundamental thing, wouldn't it be wonderful to have the student get that in a way that's really been refined, like what Discover Double Bass does, and really given some thought to like how to present that fundamental skill or that concept or whatever it is. And then you can take that and get it tailored to your own specific needs. And Geoff hit on something that I want to go back to, because I think this is another question that you probably get a lot, which is there are all these great videos on YouTube. Why don't I just go watch YouTube till the cows come home? Could you just talk a bit, which, we all do to an extent, but could you talk maybe how the experience of going through YouTube and finding resources differs from actually going through a video course?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a really fair point. I think that the reality is there is so much amazing material, like the Andy Anderson lessons, or I don't know, there's also John Clayton's done a free series of videos. Obviously, there's a Ray Brown BBC masterclass. So you can go on and on. And I think it's a fantastic thing. Why, if you're interested in walking bass, why wouldn't you watch that Ray Brown BBC masterclass, or whatever? If you're interested in bow technique, why wouldn't you watch some of the Francois Bath material that's on there? So I think all of it is really valuable. But I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to assemble topics that are in depth in a step-by-step order, and we've tried to break them down so they have very specific outcomes. Like Lauren's bowing technique course, specifically French bow, taking you right from the beginning to kind of essentially quite advanced techniques. It's a course that you would return to in the same way that you might have a theory, like say something like, I don't know, the Mark Levine Jazz Theory book or something. You might come back to it over time. Or or the Sevchek book actually by Neil Tarleton. You wouldn't just read that and then you're done. You'd revisit it all the time, and so you might work on Lauren's bowing technique course for the first couple of hours of it. I mean, I think it might even be 6 hours long, or it's really long. And and you're not going to be doing the off the string advanced strokes, in the first couple of videos. You're going to be working through it in a methodical way. And what we try to do as well is we do answer questions. We have like private groups, and there's a lot of interaction. In terms of people ask, myself and Lauren questions directly on the page, and we answer them. So we try to help them move forward, and that's really useful if somebody has, perhaps they're confused about the difference between, I don't know, 7 and a major 7 chord or whatever. The terminology is slightly fuzzy or something, and you can just answer stuff and you can help them. And of course, you can do review videos. John Patitucci has a great online thing that he does with Artist Works, where he's literally reviewing videos, and people are going through his course or our courses at Discover Double Bass, and they're working in a really methodical way. And I think it's like, it depends what you want to do. It depends where you are when you're playing. And that's why we also put out free lessons as well. I mean, one is to introduce what we're doing, but they're not all course snippets. The vast majority are just, lessons on a specific topic. So, but they cover, like Lauren's just done a great lesson on trills. It's a really specific, small thing that she shows you how to do. It's great. And if you really enjoy that and you wanted to learn more about, I don't know, left-hand technique, Lauren's got a great course on left-hand technique. It would make sense to kind of go through those, but they're not for everybody. And some people may prefer or be at a different place in their learning journey where they want to just pick out separate things. And hey, YouTube's great for that, especially if you kind of consider about what the source is, and finding material that's good. But you know what? People are pretty bright. I mean, they can figure it out. So, and there's a lot of amazing things out there. So I'd encourage people to do both. And then, of course, if you wanted to take a more in-depth course, then there are video courses available out there at places like what we do. So.
And just the layout of just the user experience, having gone through some of Discover Double Bass's courses myself, it's a wonderful experience, and it's just so clean and clear, and you can see your progress, and you can see what materials you've used, and you can access it on mobile, and you can access it on desktop, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a very seamless, easy experience, high quality experience. So I totally dig it. One thing that has impressed me about Upton Bass ever since I got to know them was how many artists there are out there that are so satisfied with the work that Upton has done for them. Here's Mark Ramirez on his experiences having Upton copy his beautiful Cavani bass.
I do a lot of moving around and giving master classes and stuff like this. I had a copy made of it by the Uptons, by Gary and Eric Roy at the Upton shop. They made a copy of it, but they made an even smaller copy. I think it's a 7/8 copy of the bass. I use it now. I use that bass for my solo playing, which I do a lot. Recently, I've been doing a lot, especially here. And it has a detachable neck. The detachable neck, man, I tell you, in Europe, it's the craze.
Learn more at uptonbass.com, and thanks for sponsoring the podcast, guys. Whenever anybody's going to the Midwest, and I lived in Chicago, Illinois for years and years, I tell them to go to A440. If they're looking for a bow, if they're looking for a bass, if they need some repairs done, if they have a student who's looking for an instrument, A440 has been serving the community for years and years. They're located just west of Wrigley Field in beautiful Chicago. They do great work, and they've been a big supporter of bass events over the years, whether it's the Chicago Bass Festival or really any bass event. A440, you guys rock. Check them out at a440violinshop.com. I'd love to talk a bit just in general. So you just did this course on walking bass lines and then also how to play a trio. So super cool. So maybe we could start with walking bass lines. What do people need to know about walking bass lines? Where do you even start with that? And I've read your book, so I kind of know your approach, but can you just talk about where do you even begin when you, and as a private teacher, I have this experience a lot. Like, okay, got my first jazz lesson. Like, how do you get someone going, learning how to walk bass?
Oh man, that's such a deep question.
Sorry.
No, I love it. The thing is, the first thing I'll do is try and teach someone how to draw a characteristic sound out of the bass. Mm-hmm. Say this, we're gonna pull this kind of sound. We're gonna aim for this type of articulation. You can describe the sound, using these adjectives. And here are a few bass players that really exemplify, this type of tone. And it might sound really elementary, but if it sounds like jazz, then you're a heck of a lot closer to playing it than if it doesn't. And I always read everything in sound. So for beginning students, like pulling a sound and then maybe just playing quarter notes in time, so that way they can connect the experience of playing a beautiful sound with a clear sense of pulse. And then from there, it's like once they have that sort of foundational idea, then we can get into learning like how to walk over a blues just with chord tones, or really elementary things. But again, it's just always sort of revisiting the fundament of really, beautiful sound and a clear sense of time, and just clear note choices. Because regardless of whether you're playing, in, I don't know, like a high school jazz group or playing with Herbie Hancock or whatever, the same principles apply. Beautiful sound, clarity in time, clarity in harmony. So that's sort of the fundament that I always go to. And with this course, it was interesting because you have to be very clear about what you're saying and then very clear about what you're not going to say. Mm-hmm. Because just like with writing the books, a little bit of information is a very dangerous thing. So if I only present someone with, it's like, okay, I'm drawing the sound this way, or like playing in the trio and say, okay, for this, I thought it was appropriate to have, a really pointed, articulate sound. It's like, well, that could be its own course, an hour just on the sort of aesthetics of a jazz bass sound, like how to think about it, how to compare it to what other people.
All the different players and like examples. Yeah. And I think how awesome it's going to be in years to come where we'll be able to sort of create material like that and drawing upon the archive of material that's out there on YouTube and comparative studies, Yeah. Sorry, Danny, keep going. I'm just getting excited about.
No, it's great. It's great. But that's basically, that's it. Like, so it's trying to communicate then those values that I really care about, like in the, talking about walking bass lines with this course. A lot of it was really rooted in my desire part of it was my desire to learn the fingerboard better, just be really like functionally aware of how everything I was doing related to the band, the trio or the quartet or whoever I'm playing with. And in the pursuit of trying to be really clear with my expression of harmony and just understand like really basic mechanics of the fingerboard, a lot of this vocabulary evolved out of that. And once I had a better idea of how I could play with that type of clarity, it really informed just about everything else I did in my own playing. And I spent a lot of time, like the Lowdown 2 is like 200 something pages of walking bass lines. And I was talking to Geoff about this too, because he said he did something similar in his own studies, but I just have like hundreds of pages of bass lines at home that I just wrote out in books, just trying to generate material. So that way when I'm playing, I don't have to think about it as much. I can continue to focus on just that fundament of again, really clear expression of sound and time and harmony. But again, I don't have the luxury of being able to talk about all those things in the course because it would be like 45 hours long or something, something ridiculous. We wouldn't have enough time to do that. So it's just communicating those, trying to communicate those values clearly, like sort of putting my money where my mouth is, just like playing with the clear harmony and still trying to play with the beautiful sound and play as expressively as possible. Yeah, I don't know, Geoff, how about you? Like, what do you, when you're working with beginner students, walking bass lines or just anything, like how do you approach that, and how does it differ for the videos?
I think the hard thing about the hard thing about the video side for beginner students is that essentially you're introducing ideas, and you're introducing ideas in a kind of, when you're teaching privately, in quite a general sense. Like you might have a student that will come and you'll be talking about technique, and you'll be talking about harmony and what have you. You'll be talking about posture and left hand technique and tone prediction, all of these things within the space of, one sentence if you talk as much as I do. And certainly within a lesson, you're covering all of these things. With a video, you've got to be kind of really clear about what you're doing, because you'll be excluding some things. You will be, for instance, like, creating basslines only using restricted patterns at the beginning. So probably you'll be creating basslines using roots and fifths and what have you. You have to break things down into really, really small chunks. And the thing that I got from private tuition that me and Danny both worked really hard on with all of our courses, and Lauren as well, is that we try to get people playing as much as they can, as soon as they can, to keep the momentum, because you can explain for hours and hours about a topic, and you can provide all the backstory. I've just mentioned the modes, so I've now got to say everything about the modes, and I've just mentioned playing fifth, so I've got to say that it's a flat 5 over a minor 7 flat 5 chord, which is also called a half diminished chord. So before you know it suddenly becomes ridiculous, and the lesson's 10 minutes long, and it should be 2 minutes long. And I think what you've got to be able to do is to present material and say, listen, we're going to work on a very specific exercise now, and try to keep the momentum. My in-person lessons, and the students that have done well are playing, and they're enjoying playing the bass, because the bass is a fun instrument to play. It sounds awesome. Just play some basic notes, and I just try to get people making sound and enjoying playing the bass. And it's definitely the same with the courses. And then as things progress, you introduce more topics. And of course, you've got to be very careful you don't exclude stuff and, to the detriment of the student. But it's, I think, learning about how to present material. And I think the best teachers are able to do that in the right way, and get people excited. Because the people I studied with, who were made me so, like Leon Bosch or Bozo Paradish or Zoltan Dekani, all would just, I'd come away from their lessons just absolutely buzzing and wanting to get hold of the bass. And I kind of want people to be doing that as well, after taking a lesson with me or taking one of Danny's courses or whatever,
And just thinking back to all the, I did a fair amount of jazz playing in my younger days, and especially at university at Northwestern, and just and did a lot of jazz teaching when I taught at DePaul, and just the complexity of these topics. Jazz lessons can tend to go into like a wheels within wheels sort of approach. It's sort of like the stereotypical jazz masterclass, is you're never really sure what you're talking about. And so like I commend you on tackling this complex thing and laying it out like this. And you're going to turn out a bunch of jazz walking bass beasts with this kind of material. And I'm super curious about this other course too. This trio. So how to play it? What is that all about? Tell me about that other course.
Yeah. We're still in the plan. It's sort of planning the curriculum around it. Mm-hmm. But I think part of the foundation was just that we had so much. I had such a blast playing with these guys in the video recording, and there were a lot of things, like Geoff was saying, that that was occurring in the interaction of the group, and sort of some of the subtleties that I didn't necessarily gloss over, but it was, the focus was just more on, the walking lines. But it was just, such a treat to be like, oh man, you played, the piano player played this really great chord substitution, and I totally heard it, and I wasn't able, to necessarily acknowledge it in the way that I would have liked to, or thinking about dynamics within a group, or trying to make arrangements happen as we're playing. And like Geoff was saying, the common endings to tunes, all those sort of split second decisions that have to be made when you're playing or trying to create an architecture. And a lot of those devices are, it's not commonly shared amongst everybody, but there are certain patterns to the ways that things are done that can really make for an effective trio experience. That I've found that work for me, and Geoff has similarly the same sorts of ideas. And I think it was just out of again, after the course, we were just kind of looking at each other and been like, oh man, this would have been so much fun to explore. Like it would just be great to sort of hash it out and provide people resources to engage even deeper into the role of the bass in a trio setting, and sort of the role of servitude that it has.
Also, I think we found ourselves with this new toy. You know, we're in a studio with a great band with a fantastic video crew who are going around doing all of this really crazy filming. There's like 3 videographers, and one of them's got a roving camera that's going around. There's 4 cameras, and we just came away from it thinking that was the material is that, you know, the main course about Walking Bass is actually about the material, and it's really demonstrating those concepts with the bands and, you know, showing that. But we just enjoyed that day so much. We just thought, like, we've got to do something more with this thing, because we're just really excited about about sharing all of this stuff, and I'm really excited about putting that together, and we're hoping to get that done really soon, possibly even before the larger course, because the larger course does has got quite a lot of work to be done to it. So it might be that we get the trio one out first if we get a move on, but we'll see.
The filming process, man, like, I mean, the videography team was just so so fantastic to work with, and the studio was so beautiful. It's like we probably could have filmed like a double bass action film in there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I wanted to have you coming in on a helicopter, Danny.
Yeah, in on a helicopter, flaming basses. Like, I play so fast that the bass just explodes. You know, we could just tell people that we made that anyways. You know, it'd be good.
That's the third course. Yeah,
exactly.
That's for next summer.
bonus track, bonus scene.
Well, I mean, my rule of thumb, I tell people, folks, if you haven't produced, I mean, yes, you can pull out your iPhone and shoot some video, but to do something at a high level, my rule of thumb is there's writing, and then doing audio to me is 10 times the work of writing. And to me, doing video is 10 times the work of audio. So, I mean, it is a high bar. And I mean, it sounds like a first-class production with the film crew in there and the live band. And it's just so cool. I've been such a fan of what you've been doing already, Geoff, on Discover Double Bass. And just to see you continuing to move forward, that's really exciting.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. And, you know, like giving a shout out to you as well about your videos, the video work that you did at the British conference. I loved those interviews, you know, and you got it looking really smooth. There's a nice depth of field with a blurred background and all of those interviews. I really loved them, and the performances that you captured as well. So it's really cool that we're all experimenting with this medium and trying to, you know, share it with the bass world. So,
well, you know, there's nothing like this sort of terror of doing something like that live. You just have to sort of have faith that it goes well. And it mostly went well, but there was one amazing moment that I will still wait for the dust to settle a little bit, and then I will share it publicly at the very. I will share this briefly with both of you and to the audience listening, because I haven't told this to anybody yet, but a lot of people saw this moment anyway online. So I was set up to film the finals, and we were expecting about 10,000 people to check in with that, right? Over the course. That was just our numbers, and that's probably about the number of people that did check in. So we're set up, the video's ready to go. I've got this fancy camera. I bought this special Facebook Live streaming program on my laptop. I got my mics, everything's ready to go, and just when Simone Marciniak's about to play the first note, everything craps out. The video disappears. It defaults to my laptop camera pointing at me, and you see my sweaty, desperate face, and then you see me going to the guy next to me like, what's going on? What's going on? And then you see me rotate my laptop and in the most lo-fi way possible, film Simone. And I saw all the frowny faces on Facebook Live start to appear in comments. So I have this all archived, and at some point I will excerpt that out and put it up. It is there for you to find if you really want to dig, folks. I will not put a link, but it is one of my more embarrassing public moments. Everything else went really well, but
awesome.
Yeah. So
that is awesome. Yeah. Sometimes it just happens, doesn't it? You've just got to turn the camera. I love the fact that it's pointing on your face at the time that it happens, though, because I'm guessing you were a little bit tense at that moment.
The look of panic, everybody will understand. It is one of those most awkward 15 seconds to watch. If you want to cringe, you'll totally feel my pain watching back on that. So. Well, guys, it's so great to both of you. I consider you both close personal friends. Geoff was one of my first guests on the podcast when I restarted back in 2015. I can't believe it's 2018 now. Time flies. Danny, so great to have you on the show, too. Danny, in addition to being a guest on the podcast, he wrote an article for my new Colleges Guide project that's been super popular, all about jazz programs in the United States. Both of you, I just commend you both for what you're doing. Can you just let folks know a little bit about where they can get in touch with you in terms of links and social media and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Geoff and Danny.
Okay. So DannyZiemann.com, DannyZiemann. I don't know why I'm spelling it. You could probably provide a link too, but just, in case anyone's interested, they need to hear it twice. I'm actually in the process of uploading a bunch of new videos to YouTube in the next few months, just of performances. So if anyone wants to hear me play, YouTube is probably the best place to find that. My books are on Amazon. It's again, just put my name in there and you'll find that. But basically trying to plant myself over the internet as much as I can. So.
Yeah, and I'm over at discoverdoublebass.com. That's where all the lessons and courses, that's the central hub of it. And there is the YouTube channel as well, which you can find on YouTube fairly easily. But all of the stuff is actually assembled in there's a free lessons library. So not all of the videos are kind of floating around on YouTube, but they are all there. And there's some really cool articles like the one Lauren did on Articulations and Markings Guide, where there's 20 examples of her playing and all of these visual things. And so discoverdoublebass.com is for me. And we have a Facebook, page, and we're on Twitter as well. So just come and hang out. And we're always chatting about bass and really excited to talk about it. So if anyone wants to get in touch, please, just reach out and say hi. Myself and Danny and Lauren are always up for chatting about double bass. That's definitely the case.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thanks for having us on, awesome. Jason.
Yeah, thanks,
Great to speak to you.
Geoff and Danny, thanks, guys. And I'm sure we'll have both of you on the podcast again very soon. Folks, discoverdoublebase.com. I'm sure you're following along with what Geoff and Lauren Pierce, Adam Ben Ezra, this ever-growing pool of bass performers and teachers that have courses at Discover Double Bass. Now Danny Ziemann. I'm sure you're following along with what they're up to. But if not, go to Discover, I should be able to say that word after this interview, discoverdoublebase.com. And you got to follow along with them. Certainly on their email list. They send out great stuff every week, but also YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. They're there and they're putting out great content, not just about the courses they've got going on, but great content about bass in general. The name says it all, Discover Double Bass. It's another way to learn more about this great instrument and all these topics that we share a passion about. And thank you for listening to this episode. If this is your first time listening, or you've been listening for a while, doesn't matter, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. You can go to contrabassconversations.com/subscribe, and any way that you want to listen to this podcast, we've got an option for you. And I'd love to hear from you too. Feedback at contrabassconversations.com puts you in touch with me. I respond to each and every message, and I just get such a thrill of reading what people are up to, where they're from, how they happen upon this podcast, where they're in their career, what they're interested in. It just means so much to me. So thank you if you have written. If you haven't written, send me a message. I'd love to chat and learn more about what you're up to. Contrabass Conversations is produced by Michael Cooper, Steve Hinchy, Trevor Jones, and Mitch Mooring. And if you're looking for a double bass, Mitch makes great instruments in the Dallas area. Learn more at mitchmooring.com. I'm your host, Jason Heath, coming to you each and every week from San Francisco, California, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.